The white paper that Jim Lefevre and I wrote for Jobs to be Done within Innovation was really intended to identify the approach for innovation, which focuses on leveraging and understanding the job that needs to be done by an individual. Innovation really is not about, some flashy idea or some workshop or some neat experience that we want to achieve. It really comes down to the idea of what someone in their patient journey or health journey needs to accomplish, and then how do we develop things and approaches that meet that need, thus innovating for those services. So that's really what the paper is about, and I was really glad to have the opportunity to write it with Jim Lefevre. I was inspired to write the paper largely by Jim. We've worked together in the past, and as we were talking about some of the interesting challenges that beset the industry, we really got to this point where we said, let's think about something together to help move forward and put our thinking out there into the industry. And so Jim was a really big part of the inspiration for writing the paper that we wrote. And then specifically, one of the things that really motivated me to write it with Jim was having the thought and the idea that if we want to really drive and press forward in the industry, if we want to make things change and operate differently with the patients at the center, we need to continue to put that voice out into the marketplace. So that was really the inspiration for Jim and I to write the paper. The main takeaway I'd like folks to take away from the paper is really pinpointing the steps that are necessary for the patient to accomplish what they want to achieve in their health journey. So often we spend time thinking about what's the latest technology, or how do we leverage data and information. We've had data and information for a long time, and we have more and more of it. But if you truly want to be innovative, I believe that understanding the journey that the patient is going to go through from diagnosis of the disease all the way through treatment is really important, and those are the points in which we should be thinking about how we innovate, how we work differently to create solutions for that individual. And so that's the key takeaway I'd love for folks to walk away with, is pause for a moment, not necessarily think about the new shiny object, but rather the person you're trying to serve. Our Capgemini Invent group has a number of capabilities within the organization to help move through those stages, and we act in a unified, harmonized way. Quite often in the imagine phase, we leverage a number of techniques that are led by Frog, which is part of Capgemini Invent, where we look at the customer experience, the journeys that we can create, the personas around how they operate and work, and then we do a number of things like ethnographic research to really understand and get behind the job that needs to be done for a person. And then we build out what the journey and the engagement of that patient or person should look like. And that's where we start with the first phase of the work that we do. Moving on to the next phase, we really then begin to converge ideas, create concepts that we can then begin to test. In some cases that could be a prototype, in some cases that could be experiences that we walk people through, and that's really when we begin to create and make that experience come to life. And then finally, once those things are tested, once we see what resonates and we understand how they work, how people react to them, we can then begin to scale those things, leveraging the broad breadth of not just Capgemini Invent, but Capgemini as a whole, and bringing all of the expertise, all of the capabilities of the organization together. I almost don't even like hearing the word disruption anymore. We've used it so often, and it's absolutely true, right, that we continue to be or see disruptions in the industry. And I think the dilemma that we have as innovators is really how do we take ourselves outside of ourselves. It's not just about something that is new or different, but really how do we examine a problem, and that's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing to do is identifying the right problem to solve. And we're so often focused on rushing ahead and trying to find a solution that we forget to look at the problem we're ultimately trying to solve. You know, in the white paper we talked about what some of the dishwashing companies did as part of their innovation process. And what they did, which made them so successful, is they said, well, what's the problem we're actually trying to solve, right? And the problem they were trying to solve is people wanted to wash dishes as they went, right? You know, if you've ever done a holiday party or an event, or even in your daily life as you're cooking, you want to be able to potentially use a plate, use a bowl, and then wash it quickly so they don't build up. That was the problem they were trying to solve, and because they started with the problem and defined the problem well, that allowed them to be disruptive, that allowed them to get over the dilemma of being innovative. They didn't start with, okay, what's the newest, coolest cleaning ingredient? They started with a problem to solve and a job to be done.